And elsewhere in Iraq and Syria, ISIS appears to have a dangerous new weapon. Here, an ISIS militant is shown firing at an Iraqi helicopter with a shoulder-fired missile, identified by experts at Jane's Defense as a Chinese-made FN-6. The next frame shows what ISIS claims was the result, the twisted wreckage of the downed chopper. With U.S. aircraft, including Apache helicopters and AC-130 gunships, now in action over Iraq, so-called man-pads, or man-portable air defense systems, are a grave and growing concern.
There's clearly significant potential threat to aviation operating in Iraqi and Syrian airspace due to ongoing fighting, and of particular concern is our advanced conventional weapons like man-pads.
U.S. officials have not confirmed that ISIS has obtained the weapons, but there are fears they captured them from retreating Iraqi forces or bought them from other Syrian rebel groups. Man-pads like the FN-6 can strike aircraft flying at altitudes up to 12,500 feet, making both Apaches and AC-130s vulnerable, though not higher-flying combat aircraft such as FA-18s or B-1Bs, or commercial aircraft at cruising altitude. Man-pads are a threat, however, to civilian or military aircraft on takeoff and landing, a threat that has grown as ISIS forces have moved within several miles of Baghdad International Airport. Former U.S. Commander General Mark Hertling says ISIS is still not close enough to pose the most severe threat.
So you've got to be within a couple of miles to take a good shot, and so far they haven't encroached that closely to the western side of the airport.
ISIS militants are now sharing missile know-how far and wide, even posting a manual on the best ways to down an Apache on the internet, including recommended techniques such as firing from elevated areas. U.S. pilots, however, have their own techniques. They can alternate flight paths to prevent ISIS fighters from setting up firing positions along the way. And Wolf, as you and I have talked about, they also have more advanced Apache helicopters that can fire from distance, standoff distance, perhaps behind a building or a mountain, which makes them less vulnerable, but not entirely unvulnerable to this kind of threat.
If they get closer and closer to Baghdad International Airport, the planes will have to do that little spiral landing because they're afraid they're going to be knocked out of the sky.
Absolutely. And as Iraqi forces increasingly confront ISIS forces, particularly in Fallujah, etc., they've needed close air support from American aircraft like Apaches and AC-130s. They're low flyers. You know, whatever measures they take, they're still vulnerable to this kind of weapon.
All right, Jim, shoot over that report. Thanks very much. An American